Hello, beautiful people. So, welcome to next episode of a wellness video, Wellness with Tony. Today, I want to talk about perception and perspective and how it relates to stress and anxiety. Now, we'll circle back a little bit to the first video where I talked about stress and stress management being a foundation or key aspect in overall wellness. So of course, definition of stress, you have to define that. Sergey Kahili King, hope I'm getting the name right, uh, gives us a definition. Stress is any change experienced by an individual. And then Richard Lazarus expands upon that by saying this is when things become too much for one's ability to cope with that change. Also tells us that anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. Funny thing with anxiety, I'd heard a stand-up comedian a while back describe anxiety as imaginary, or my body, I suffer from, how did they put it? I suffer from anxiety, or as I like to call it, my body tingles with imaginary danger. And there's quite a bit of truth to that. Uh, Anxiety is a perceived uh, fear of what's to come, or, or is a perceived stress um, of what hasn't happened yet. And this is what leads me to want to talk about perception and perspective. Anxiety isn't the same as fear, though. I wanted to be careful not to put those two in the same thing. The Encyclopedia of Psychology discusses this, that they're often used interchangeably, anxiety and fear, but anxiety is considered future-oriented. It's like that comedian said, wish I could remember their name, are fantastically funny. Um, Anxiety is considered future-oriented, where you anticipate this coming, but it may not be that way. Um, it's a long-acting response broadly focused on a diffuse threat, whereas fear is an appropriate present-oriented. So fear is something you're facing right now. You're fearing something in the present moment, and short-lived response to a clearly identified and specific threat. Now, perception and perspective might get people confused. Sometimes I have to think about it for a second. Perception is the way we interpret things in our world, how we make sense of everything around us. This is from Dr. Eddie O'Connor. He's a motivational speaker and performance psychologist. He says, quote, "Perception is the way we interpret and make sense of the world around us," unquote. Not only is it how our senses take in the world around us, but also how that influences our experiences, our social interactions, our cultural norms, and everything else. Whereas perspective, quote from Dr. Eddie O'Connor again, perspective refers to a particular attitude or point of view that we have towards a situation or topic, unquote. It's influenced usually by perception, but is more influenced by our beliefs, our history, our values, things that we were raised with. Whereas our perspective may be influenced by how our parents saw things, how our ancestors perceived the world around them, and then it passed that down to future generations. Perception is how, like, actually, here would be a good example of perception from somebody I know. I had a discussion about cleanliness and cleaning products with a friend of mine, and I mentioned he doesn't really like the smell of bleach gets to him, and it really bothers him. Whereas for me and other people I know, the smell of bleach can signify clean and mean something is clean. And we talked about this a little bit. We explored, this perception, if you will, that um, and that goes back to I was raised that you use bleach to clean things. So you see something is clean and you smell bleach. So that was my perception. That's how I've been raised with it. Whereas his first perception of bleach was something dangerous. He got it on his hands or something, and it hurt. He felt that itch. He felt that sting. That bleach can damage your skin. So that's how he's perceived. That's how, his perception of bleach as something dangerous. But then we also talked about how to shift that perspective. Like if you were to suddenly see things as clean and then start perception can be reassociated. It takes some work depending upon how deeply ingrained that perception can be. So, for example, somebody who has a negative perception of something, but if you reinforce a positive aspect of said negativity, but then slowly introduce a positivity towards it, and then slowly start to associate that positivity. So, like, say you're going to associate clean with bleach, and then you slowly introduce the scent of bleach with that clean, with that positive visual of cleaning. You have to be careful with scents because, as I've learned in uh, cognitive psychology, scent is a very strong perception, or a sense is a very strong perception of a sense. Your sense of smell can be directly wired into your brain and into your cognition and your way of thinking. Whereas touch, taste, sight, they can be manipulated fairly easily because there's a lot more processing in the brain that happens in that. But it's one thing to think about when you're stressed about something, or if you're experiencing anxiety about something. What is your perception, or what are you perceiving as stressful? And is it really that? And where does that perception come from? Maybe dive into it just a little bit. Ask yourself that why question, which tends to be kind of quite popular among counselors and psychologists. We always want to know, why do you think that way? Why are your thoughts leading you down that road? Why is that journey taking you in that direction? So sometimes if you're thinking about stress, or a moment of stress, or something that's giving you anxiety, especially anxiety is a really good one to focus on your perspective and your perception of something, because you can take that moment of anxiety and start to re-rationalize it. Basically, ask yourself, why do you have this perspective? Why are you perceiving it? Maybe shift your perspective. Um, Look at it. Put yourself in a different environment. Put yourself in a different. Somehow just reframe. It's hard to describe it in a way, but basically reframing your mind. Like, even first thing that comes to mind with perspective in a way is Dead Poet Society, when Robin Williams gets up on the desk and says, let's shift our perspective. Things are different from up here. Everybody stand on your desk. You get a different perspective at that different height. Maybe lay down on the ground. Gives you a different perspective of things. Get down, get on your hands and knees. Dogs seem to have a very less stress and less anxiety than humans. Put yourself in their paws for a moment. Our animal cohorts have fairly easy lives. A lot of that's thanks to us. We guard and protect loving pets. But anyway, you get the idea, I think. So perception and perspective, something to think about in the realm of, in that bigger picture of stress and stress management and anxiety. How do you see the world? How are you observing and taking in all the stimulus around your world? Are you taking it in appropriately? Are you dealing with it appropriately? Is there a better way of coping with it? That's it for now. I'm hoping my goal in this new year is to get on, to be a little more regular with these video casts. The end of 2024 was a little crazy and hectic and everything. Holidays generally are. And, health and everything is getting back on track and all that stuff. So I look forward to more of these talks with you. Thanks for tuning in.